In today's episode of Dolly Transformations, I am once again going to be making over not one, but two Bitty Baby dolls. I never thought that this would happen again because in the fall of 2024, I had two eBay Bitty Babies that I happened to get around the same time frame, and they both needed some work. And here we are again. However, these girls have a really special story. So they are both older Bitty Babies, probably early Pleasant Company. They could in fact maybe be our new baby because there's like overlap there. I've done some research and it doesn't seem like there's a lot of consistent agreement on if there's even a difference with our new baby dolls and Bitty Baby. The only thing that would definitely be indicative of our new baby would be if they have flat shoelace style neck strings as opposed to like these rounded ones. But a lot of the differences people were talking about, like slightly deeper head grooves or the way their arms lay, I think that that's pretty open to interpretation because the way these babies are put together is they're glued into the sockets, so any slight tiny difference in how the arm is placed when the glue is applied is going to change how their arms fall, as well as any abnormalities in the way that their bodies are stitched, because I have newer ones that their arms point quite upwards. So I'm guessing they're Bitty Babies, not our new babies, because those are much easier to find, and that's when I bought them, that was my assumption. So I saw these girls on opening day at the flea market this year in 2025, which was in April. It wasn't actually opening day, it was like Easter Sunday. The weather was really bad this year. It snowed the first weekend of April. It rained the next weekend. We went Easter Sunday. There weren't many people. And inside the building, in a glass case, there were 4 American Girl dolls, and 2 of them were Bitty Babies. And I have an extreme weakness for Bitty Baby. Bitty Baby was one of my favorite dolls growing up, and most of the dolls, the babies in my collection, were rescued. So when I saw these girls in the case, and at the time they were covered in some white powdery substance, I felt so awful. And they were reasonably priced. They were 10 each, which was a little bit much for their condition, but I knew that they were older. However, I talked myself out of it because I technically have both of these dolls, because this is the blonde gray-eyed baby and this is the original Asian baby. And funnily enough, I had wanted this doll for years, and my sister and I had looked at the flea market for 13-14 years for this doll and never found her. So my sister bought me Ming Mei off of eBay for my birthday last year, and then of course she turns up. So it was kind of funny how they worked out, and I wasn't going to rescue one without the other. So I've been avoiding going into the building at the flea market when we've gone because I knew I might cave and buy them. And sure enough, when we went in this past Sunday, because there weren't many people set up, I went over to the glass case and the 2 18-inch dolls had sold, but not these girls. And after almost leaving the flea market without them a second time, I ended up finally going and getting them, which wasn't as easy as I thought because the guy who owned them, who was selling them, wasn't at the booth and we had to wait around for a while, but it was worth it. So this is Olive and this is Twiggy. And they are pretty disgusting. They smell worse than they look. They kind of smell like if you shop at flea markets, you know, that really like musty, they've been in storage for a long time smell. They were in a glass case with a bunch of plushies, so I think that's part of why they're so rank. And I think they were wiped off at some point when someone else bought the other dolls, because they were covered in like, I wasn't sure if it was white mold or some kind of like powder, but it's not on them anymore. So today I'm going to be making them over. Obviously you'll notice here on Olive, she has silver eye. This entire eye is completely silver. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to send her in to get her eye replaced, because her good eye is in such spectacular condition and it almost just makes her look like she has heterochromia, because this eye is evenly discolored, and she has a little bit of silver eye too. When I show you a close-up, you'll see that it's not that bad. So I'm very excited to have these ladies. I love giving babies a new home, and even though they don't have hair and like a lot of complicated features, it's just not all that often that I actually allow myself to buy Bitty Babies secondhand, because I do see them a lot. And I'm really excited to have these 2 older girls. And I did just update my American Girl collection video, so if you want to know all of the dolls I had before these guys, you can check that out. They are number 91 and 92 in our collection. So without further ado, let's get into the video. I haven't dressed them so that you can see a good look at like what we're dealing with here. And I will show like before and after clips too at the end. So they're not as dirty as they could be, but you can see what I mean about her eyes. This eye is very evenly silvered. Some dolls they are not, and the dolls with this head mold are really prone to have eyes that like stick shut because of how narrow their eyes are. It's really beautiful. They have beautiful head sculpt. But yeah, it's pretty gross. Her body is dirtier. She's got like something gross back there. It's mainly the smell that's disturbing. And then Twiggy, she has like silvering that almost just makes her irises look more detailed. My doll just like her, name's Jelly, has it more so in one eye, so it looks more asymmetrical. But I'm pretty sure that you can still send them in for free to get new eyes, but what makes these dolls special, see how pale her lashes are? The newer ones do not have such pale lashes, and her lashes are in excellent shape too. Added detergent and some cold water to this laundry tub, and I mixed it around to break up the laundry detergent, and I'll be adding their bodies in here later. I fast forwarded the clips of me scrubbing Olive and Twiggy's bodies because it's just the same process I use on any and every type of plastic doll in my collection. If you see my other transformation videos for Barbie size dolls, then you know the drill. I like to use dish soap. This Gain stuff smells really, really nice, so that's my go-to. But you can use any dish soap. I'll do a layer of that first, and then I rinse that off, or sometimes I just add the baking soda right on top. The baking soda is actually what American Girl used to sell to clean their dolls. We bought the skincare kit as kids, and when it arrived, we looked at the contents of the little jar of cleaning powder, and it was just baking soda. So we would refill it as kids with more baking soda, and it gave me the idea when I started collecting dolls again in 2011, like, hey, you know, that works so well on American Girls, why can't I use it on Barbie-sized dolls? And it's awesome. It's gentle enough where it doesn't create scratches or rub off paint, but it is slightly abrasive, so it's great at getting set in grime. Now, I know the camera didn't pick it up super well with these two dolls, but they were pretty dirty, and it was clear that they had been neglected for a while, so they had a lot of like years of grime and just weird marks on their bodies. So it required definitely more extensive scrubbing than usual, and if I just were to use soap, a lot of it wouldn't come off. I've seen like what it looks like when you just clean with soap and water, and it might get some surface stuff off, but definitely not what's set in. You're going to notice a much better clean and a much fresher look to the doll if you use baking soda. You don't need to use harsh chemicals. I always see people like saying you have to use certain kinds of fancy cleaners. You really don't. And the nice thing about like dish soap and baking soda is if you have sensitive skin like I do, it's not irritating in the same way. One of the reasons why I don't like using strong chemicals is because I chemically burned myself as a kid. I was trying to clean out our Barbie Golden Dream motorhomes, and I didn't know better because I was like 8, and I used a bunch of different cleaners, and then afterwards I went to put lotion on my very dried out hands, and they felt like they were on fire. They were beet red. I chemically burned myself. So as an adult, I do not like using harsh chemicals. I mean, just because something is labeled as natural, that doesn't mean it won't bother you. Like borax, for instance, can cause burns too. But baking soda, other than maybe drying your skin out a little bit, just like dish soap, it's not going to cause major irritation, and it does a wonderful job. It's super cheap. You don't need to spend a ton of money. And I am using occasionally a little square of a magic eraser. It's actually like the off-brand. It's Walmart's brand, because I'm cheap and I don't buy name branded much of anything. But I cut those into like quarters, and then I'll use them for any kind of stubborn marks. So as you can see, I am using it on the back of Olive's head. Normally I don't recommend doing that. Because magic erasers will lift paint. They are actually melamine foam, and they can lift up paint because they are a type of basically sandpaper. But she had some kind of sticky stuff. I don't know if it was varnish or some kind of sealer that dripped, and it wasn't easy to get off. And even with just like baking soda, what would happen is as it lifted up the sticky stuff, some paint came with it. So at that point it didn't really matter, and I wanted the cleanest surface, smoothest surface for touching up the paint later. So that's why I used the magic eraser on those areas, but I did it gently so as not to disturb the nice paint in other places. And I found some interesting gunk on the bottom of Twiggy's head when I pulled it off. So to clean the bodies, I undo the strings using a flat screwdriver. I remove all the stuffing from the bodies. Then I put them in a pillowcase, which I'm going to put in the washing machine. You'll see that in a minute. And this way the stuffing gets nice and clean. You don't need to replace the stuffing. And then I stick the bodies in with the laundry tub. The limbs might get a little water in there, but it's not a big deal. And then you're going to see I'm going to come in the room in a second with a blow dryer. So if you get water behind their eyes, it does not cause silver eye. This is a factory defect. It has nothing to do with water. They could never get wet and get it, but they do have like aluminum that can rust behind their eyes. So put it on a cold setting only, not hot, and blow out any water that got behind there potentially. Now you can replace stuffing or add stuffing to the dolls that's new, but if you wash it in a pillowcase, tie it off, I put a little laundry detergent in there just to be sure, run it through the wash cycle and toss it in the dryer after. It's good as new, it fluffs it out nicely, and then you can just put it back in the body. I'm just putting it in with a load of laundry, some laundry detergent. So I have to repair some of the paint on Olive because you can see there's still some of that like sticky-ish looking stuff. I got most of it off, and even just using my fingernail or the baking soda, whatever that was as it came off was pulling up some of her paint, and I did want to try to get as much of it off as possible without doing too much damage, which was a real shame because she has otherwise very nice paint. You can see like this side looks like new, but that's alright. So I'm going to use black acrylic paint, and I'm going to mix it in with some of this gloss varnish to make it stronger and sturdier. And that's why you do have to be careful when using magic erasers. They do take paint off. I normally will not use them on any kind of paint unless I'm trying to remove it. And in this case, the stickiness, even when I used my fingernails, it was pulling off the paint. So I figured a magic eraser would get some of that off, and paint leaving was just have to be consequential. It doesn't matter what kind of paint you use, as long as it's acrylic or water-based, because oil-based paints interact with plastic and it will cause it to decay prematurely, so you'll end up with a sticky doll that's decomposing. So whatever brand works for you. I literally just use the cheap stuff, and I have dolls that I painted many years ago with this same brand, and they're fine. I like to use a sponge to kind of put the paint on without making it too streaky, and I also will take a dry paintbrush sometimes and like use that to blend in the edges or my fingers. I go back and forth a lot, especially by the hairline, because they must have airbrushed this paint on in the factory and I don't have an airbrush, so I wanted to kind of create a fade, and it was not something that's easy to achieve without an airbrush. She also had that like random streak where something kind of cut into the paint and dragged it where it shouldn't be. So I had to work around that. It was a lot of like back and forth. If you have like makeup sponges, those work really, really well. When I painted my first Bitty Baby doll that I got secondhand, Keisha, back in 2011, I had some leftover makeup sponges from cosmetology school, clean, new ones that had never been used, and those were like little wedge shapes. Those worked amazing. I just don't have those anymore because I didn't need them. But this little paintbrush sponge worked fine too, and this is me dry brushing. It's just important to make sure they're clean and you're not getting glitter in the paint. My sister had not rinsed a brush out properly when she made a card, and I discovered when it was too late that there was glitter in the paintbrush, so I had to redo an area. But Q-tips work too for some finer areas. It's just a lot of me like playing around with it. If you do get paint where you don't want it, acrylic paint will come off with either a little bit of water, or if it's kind of set in for a few minutes, if you use rubbing alcohol, isopropyl alcohol. I had some on that rag I was using to help clean up edges. And yeah, it wasn't perfect. I did seal her. I didn't show this, but I did have to do a layer of sealer at the very end, like very strong glossy sealer, because her head had some weird texture to it from whatever sticky stuff had gotten all over it, and I wanted to make it look smooth. So at the end you'll see her head is pretty shiny. Normally I don't go for like a really glossy finish. I'll go for more of like a matte or semi-gloss finish, but I needed to give extra protection to her head and kind of make the surface look more even and mask that damage. I think she turned out pretty cute. I wasn't expecting her to be perfect. So the body's soaked for a little while, I think like maybe 20 minutes, a half an hour, and now I have them drying in front of the fan with the couple clothing pieces that were on the dolls. The important thing is that you want to make sure to shake out the limbs really good, because sometimes they get waterlogged, because unfortunately with the babies they're all glued into place, so there isn't like any way to remove the limbs like you can with a regular 18-inch American Girl. If they need to be restrung, it's really easy to like take their limbs off, wash the body, let it dry, and then restrain them, but such is not the case with the babies. So these are drying. They still smell a tiny bit, but I think when they're fully dry they'll be a little bit better, and the stuffing will smell great, so that should help. Once the bodies are dry and the stuffing has gone through the dryer, it's time to restuff the dolls. It is normal, like it looks like she peed herself. Sometimes there's just a little moisture that comes out that you might have missed when shaking them out. And I had them like just naked on my desk for a few days to make sure they were dry, and it was fine. I've never had a problem with molding, but you can't always use a blow dryer and get inside the limbs if you want, if you're sensitive to mold. So with Bitty Babies, you don't have to pack the stuffing in quite as much as you have to with an 18-inch doll, because their bodies aren't as like solid. And as you can see, they're not like super plump or anything, but their heads are easy to put on. Their neck strings are just tie the head back in place when you're done, and this method just works super well. Also, it can help when you redistribute stuffing. It can help them with having better posture, or more so with the case of the 18-inch dolls. If you pack the stuffing back down, even if you don't wash it, it kind of helps make them lose weight basically so they can fit newer clothes. I've heard people say that like they know other collectors who will remove stuffing from older American Girls and get rid of it so they can fit newer clothes. You actually don't need to throw out the stuffing. I have dolls that were very played with and super fluffy and fat, and I get them into clothes I just bought from American Girl this year just by packing the stuffing back down, and they'll stay skinny for a while. So I went on eBay and I got my new baby's sleepers because I didn't have spare meat sleepers, and I found them in 2 different lots. I'll show you everything later, but I am going to put these in the laundry tub to soak because they definitely have some little like stains on them. One of the lots came with 2 diapers as well as this receiving blanket in a different lot. And then I'm also washing some of my old Bitty Baby clothes that we were photographing and taking dolls out of, as well as my childhood baby's body, so that's gonna go in there too because she needs a little freshen up. Her stuffing is currently in the wash. So this is the stuff all cleaned for my babies that I got. I really love this sleeper. It's my favorite style, and it's the only one that they would have been sold in. Unless she's an our new baby, which there is a potential because you can see her arms are very upright, which is something that they're known for. But she'd be a later one because she has the number 14 on her head. The earlier ones apparently just say Pleasant Company, but again, I don't really know how authentic that information is because there's so little about them out there. But I got them each sleepers off of eBay, so one of them came in a lot with pieces to the diaper bag that I was missing, some books and blocks, this binky, which isn't Bitty Baby, and this really cool blanket, which was only sold in the starter set, which there is such like misinformation about Bitty Baby and lacking of information about Bitty Baby on the internet, so I had to like throw catalog scans and stuff to verify that this blanket was sold only in that starter set. And then this other sleeper, which is in slightly less nice shape, you can see I did wash them in OxyClean, but it's not quite as bright white. I got this one with 2 Bitty Baby cloth diapers, which is great because now they'll each have a diaper. So this is what I mean by arm pose for our new baby and Bitty Baby, and how I don't know that it's necessarily concrete. So this is Twiggy. I suspect she might be our new baby, but I have nothing concrete because she doesn't have the really old neck strings that are flat. And she has
the head stamp without the number.
Yeah, which are both things that from what I understand and from what I've seen, are only on our new baby. But you can see that she looks like a baby with her arms like up to the sky, whereas Jelly, sorry, she's in the sun. Jelly is essentially the same doll, but see how this hand's pointed down? However, Kiki, I got in her sleeper as well, and her hands, they don't point up, but they're not pointing down. And then Olive over here, hers are like completely midline, and so is Ming Mei.
You get Ming Mei.
Ming Mei is definitely a Mattel doll. She has like the tag inside. She's Mattel. Colin got her for me for my birthday, and her arms kind of like do the same midline. So yeah, sorry, Ming Mei's eyes close weird. But you can see that Ming Mei and Olive have like pretty much the same arm pose, and also very slight tweaking on like how you lay them down or how you stuff them can kind of change that. So it's not really like, from what I'm seeing, it's not that they use actual different hand molds. It's when they're glued into the sockets. It's all at like slight angle that they're glued in at, which make them either more pronounced or pointed down. I don't think that that's necessarily a consistent way to tell because it can vary doll by doll as you're seeing here. But I do think there is a very strong potential that Twiggy's our new baby, based on just how akimbo her arms are, which isn't this much of a pronounced upward tilt is not something you usually see on Bitty Babies. I mean, the closest thing you usually get is like how their arms are.
Or like Jelly's like left hand.
Yeah, but then the other one's pointing down, so it's interesting. I'm not an expert, and there's not a lot of concrete information. There's so much misinformation. Yeah, this is kind of what they mean about the arms and what I was referring to at the intro of this video. I do not know if early Bitty Babies had the same arms, if they were putting them in the same position, because essentially it is the same doll. And I mean, I don't think there's really any deeper grooves or anything. Why would they slightly change the head mold? Because the new head molds that they introduced in 2011, when they put the eyebrows on, they completely smoothed out. I have comparison photos. Like, it's the same, it's like if the base head mold's the same, but like on Noni, she has all this is kind of smoothed out and looks more cloud-like, and they moved the hairline down. So that makes sense, but to like make grooves slightly less deep, they're casting it in the same mold. So it's like when Monster High, they started like reissuing Monster High dolls way back in the day, like in 2014, and people were convinced it was different, and it's like, no, it's the same head mold, it just, you're seeing things. And I'm very observant, so yeah. But you can see like how Olive and Ming Mei, how different their eyelashes look. And Olive's actually in better condition than Ming Mei, even though she's like probably a good 10 years older. So it's really interesting. So this is Twiggy before. You can see she has a lot of grime. I'm not sure if the camera's really picking up on it. But like above her eyes, And she smells really bad. Her hands, her little legs, the back of her head and arms. And she's got these like blue marks on her feet. Her torso actually doesn't look that bad. She does have a little bit of silvering in her eyes, but it's actually really symmetrical, so I think it makes it pretty. And this is the gorgeous Twiggy after. She has very pronounced arms. I wouldn't be surprised if she was an Arnu baby because of how her hands sit. She has like this eye on the right, her left, but when you're looking at her the right, it tends to flutter. But she does have some like scuffs on the back of her head. This is a really pale blonde, and I feel like if I tried to fix it, it would end up looking kind of too dark, so I'm okay with how it looks. But her limbs are much cleaner. And she had some issues on the bottom of her feet. She does have like a little slight stain there. I haven't put them out for stain removal just because it hasn't been nice out. So when it is, I may put them out for stain removal for a couple of those tiny marks. And this is all of before. She looks less dirty than Twiggy, but she is still quite gross. You can see she's got that scuff that goes through her paint. And she does have this like really weird crusty white stuff on her, and it's on the back of her arms. It looks like it was sticky once upon a time. And she might not be as dirty as Twiggy, but she's dirty. See, her body is also a little bit dirtier. There's like brown stuff on her body. So this is all of after, before I've dressed her up in the outfit I got. So yes, she still has silver eye. I'm not going to send her in right now. I don't personally mind. And her limbs look a lot cleaner. Still some slight staining in certain areas, which from like that sewer or whatever. And then this is her head. It is extra shiny because I had to even out the texture, which got messed up from that whatever got on her head. But you can see I kind of blended out that streak in the front. She's so cute. And this is Twiggy and Olive all finished in their outfits. I wanted to show you them naked because obviously I cleaned their bodies and these sleepers cover most of them. So yeah, I'm really excited, and I do have an Arnu baby sleeper that I happened to get from one of the same sellers as this. Well, one of these, I don't know which one, but from one of the lots I got this in. The seller made me an offer on an Arnu baby outfit that I had not even watch listed. So if she turns out to be Arnu baby, I've got the meat sleeper and the undershirt sold with it. So that is cool. I just don't feel confident right now labeling her as Arnu baby on my Flickr and potentially misleading people in case there is some sort of difference. I try to be responsible with my doll research, though I highly suspect that's what she is. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Both of these ladies are on my Flickr. In my Bitty Baby album, I've recently done some updating in there, not just with the photos that we retook last year, but I've added in some new comparison photos of things like diapers and head molds, and I did some of my own research because there's such little consistent research done on Bitty Baby dolls. I looked through old like catalog scans and stuff and updated some information on when some outfits retired and whatnot. So if you're into Bitty Baby and you also get frustrated with the lack of information on them, feel free to check out my Flickr. And until next time, love your dolls, love yourself, and love your life.